Welcome to the Blade Lab, or welcome back if you've been before. Today I'm going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be talking about the BESS tester, which is a bit controversial online. You have people who are proponents of it for testing. It is, if you don't know, it is a device for testing objectively, we will discuss, the sharpness of knife blades, or pretty much any blade that you can fit in, in the area where you cut the string. So anyway, what it consists of is a scale, which has I forget what the term is for it, but it will, when you apply pressure to it, it will go up, but it doesn't go down. So it will measure sort of the peak. That's the word I'm looking for. It will measure the peak pressure. So what you do, and one of the things I'm going to discuss is the two different sort of methods of using this. One of them uses these test clips, which I'm hoping I can get to focus. Come on, camera. There we go. Yeah, so it's just a single-use clip that has this test media, this little filament, sort of monofilament, strung across it at a fixed pressure. And so you stick that in this pedestal here, which is, this particular one is designed to accept the clips. So you just press that down. And then you take a knife, and we have this little pedestal here, which can't see because you're directly on top of it, but it's so this is well, we just have too much going on here to focus on stuff today, apparently. There we go. So yeah, that's just used to give you a little fulcrum point to break the filament, so you can do it. Makes it easier to control the movement. And so the scale measures how much pressure you're applying to the filament, and the less pressure it takes, the sharper the knife is, essentially. So typical scores, I can maybe find the sheet that they provide with the scale, but I can tell you offhand that so a typical double-edged razor blade new will score about 50 on the BESS tester. That's 50 grams of pressure. A typical utility razor blade will score about in the area of 150, maybe 125 to 150. New knives, average factory edge, in my experience, and I have now tested coming up on 120 different factory edges, on average they come in at about 220 grams before stropping. Sometimes stropping can reduce that quite a bit, sometimes not. It just sort of depends on the quality of the factory edge. So the test clip is one way of measuring. The other way is using this sort of fixture here, which, and here we go again. Basically, underneath here, there is a spool of filament that you sort of feed through this hole. Just sort of loosen this, then you draw out enough to bridge the gap. Tighten this, and then you bring it down here, and then you tighten the other screw, and there you go. Then you have to break that filament. So this brings up one point of criticism that people have with this system, in that variation in tension in the filament can result in different readings, sharpness readings. So fortunately there is a way to avoid that, and the way is to use the recommended 100 grams of tension when you tighten the screw here. The best way I have found to do that is to use a hemostat. Here, let me put this down for a second. So I have a hemostat, and I have attached this little jewelry bag, which is filled with enough little weights to bring the total weight of this thing to, I believe it's actually 101 grams in this case. That's just as close as I could get, and I think definitely close enough for my purposes. So just to verify that, because we do want to be on the up and up here, I have this scale, which I will turn on. Hopefully you can see that. Well, I'm not sure if that's going to come through, but hopefully it will. So it is set to grams. I'm going to tare it. So it is now 0. And let's just put this whole thing on here. Hold on. Okay, so now it's actually reading, 101 grams, 100. Yeah, so it's probably 101.5 anyway, or 100.5. Close-y damned enough for me. So by using the clip, we can sort of take the tension variation out of the equation. So this is going to be hard to show, isn't it? Let me move this again. It seems to be grabbing focus. So what I've done, you can see there's a little bit of tail left on the filament, so I'm just snapping the hemostat onto that tail. See, the screw is loose, and this is hanging off with the 101 grams of pressure, or 100.5 grams of pressure. Now I'm going to tighten it up so we have a properly tensioned filament, and that should give us the official BESS score. Now, a lot of people think that the clips are a more reliable way to do the test because it takes, because they are pre-tensioned. And that is true, but what's important to note is that according to the makers of the BESS tester, the clips are actually, they have 200 grams of tension on them. And the result of that is that they will come in with BESS scores that are 20% lower than the scores you will get with the properly tensioned fixture here. So if you're comparing scores that somebody's doing with the clips versus scores that somebody is doing with the properly tensioned fixture, you have to add 20% to the clip score to get the equivalent with the fixture. So let's just demonstrate that, hopefully, now, and just to verify that that is actually true. So I'm gonna, sorry, pardon my head, got to center this thing up. So, by the way, I'm using, this is a recent acquisition, what I bought on the secondary market. It is a Custom Knife Factory 520 designed by Philippe Georget with the zircuti bolsters and the sort of milled carbon fiber handles. Gorgeous knife in my opinion. But, I've had it for a couple days. I sharpened it to 17 degrees a couple days ago, so I've been using it. It's been in my pocket ever since I got it. Been using it just for typical stuff. But so this is where it is now according to the test clip. I'm going to note where I'm putting it in here. I want to put it in a similar but not the exact same place when I test these two different methods. Not the exact place, because actually testing itself can knock off a point or two even of a well sharpened knife. So let me see if I can get out the way. it's important when you're doing this to come down, when you start to see the numbers move, that you go slowly so you can see them rolling by. The biggest way to cheat this system is to go very fast when you're coming down on the thread, which is actually a much bigger factor than the tension of the filament. I can demonstrate that for you while I explain why that is the case. So these scales, any scale, samples only so many times per second. And so if you sort of just slam down on the filament, you can easily wind up sort of in between. You're not going to get enough, sorry, let me start over. You're not going to have enough samples. You're not going to give the electronics enough samples to give you an accurate reading. And what happens is, let me demonstrate. So I'm coming down to a similar place, make sure I'm centered. So I'm just going to go boink. And you see my score is now 15, which is insane. That's like 3 times sharper than a brand new feather razor blade. And it's just, of course, bullshit. So let's, well, no, we got to put this in here. So we've previously tensioned the fixture here to 100 grams, give or take. And so we got 85 with the test clips. Let's see, let's put this, I'm going to go a little farther up, just so we have a fresh piece of blade, but in a similar place, so it should have the same sharpness. And now I'm going to come down as slowly as I can. Okay, well, that actually came to 120, which is higher than I thought. When I've done this several times in testing, it's come to 100 or 105, which is right at 20% higher than than I was getting with the test clips. Let's do it one more time, just to verify. Sometimes, since I have been using the knife a little, you can hit a spot that might have a little less acuity than the average of the blade. So I'm going to go, maybe I'll come up a little higher this time. And let's do it one more time. There we go. Okay, so 100. So in this case, and that's, I've done this now, I think 4 times, and 3 of the 4 times it's come in at, 100 or 105. So if you add 20% to 85, that's 17. So 85 plus 17 is 102. Now I'm using the B version of the scale, which rounds to the nearest 5. So if we round 102 to the nearest number, then you get 100, and voila, as predicted by Edge On Up, the makers of the BESS tester, this is 20% higher than the test clip results. So that pretty much sums up my comments about the sort of the methodology for testing these knives. So if somebody is doing it properly, as I've demonstrated, it is pretty repeatable. I mean, you can, of course, you're only testing an area of the blade which is as thick as the filament here. So obviously, if you have sort of widely varying sharpness along the blade, it's only going to give you the sharpness of the particular section that you tested. So that's a factor if you're testing knives that have been used a lot, because different parts wear different speeds depending on what you're cutting, yada yada. But mostly the way I use it, and the way I think most people use it, is to test sharpness after or in the process of sharpening a knife, so I can make sure that I'm getting the results that I want. So I'll usually when I do it, I'll sort of sharpen the knife and I'll strop it, and then I'll test it to see where I am, and if I'm where I think I should be, then that's it, and I'm happy. But sometimes, I may have not gotten all the burr off, or maybe I didn't. At this point, I'm pretty much always apexing the edge, but sometimes you might not apex, absolutely every centimeter or millimeter of the edge, and then you're going to get a really bad reading, and that you have to go back and do more work to get the results you want. And to me, that is the value of this machine. It's really something to help with your sharpening, and not something for sort of bragging rights on YouTube or on forums. Because if somebody is not honest, and they just are trying to sort of bolster their credentials or their abilities, it's not that hard to fake results. And I'm not saying that everybody who posts results does. You can usually tell if somebody is using, a sort of fixed weight to tension this, then that person, or I have a pretty good idea that that person is doing things the right way, and they're trying to find out how sharp the knife is, rather than trying to sort of bolster their own ego or their YouTube viewership or whatever. Likewise, if somebody is using, these clips, they do make it impossible to fake the tension, but you do have to add the 20%, and it's still possible to sort of fake the result by just going way too fast. So you want to make sure, if you're interested in what somebody is getting on YouTube, you want to make sure you can see how quickly they're doing it. You want to watch the numbers sort of increase. You should be able to see the numbers increasing, 1 by 1 or 5 by 5, depending on which scale they're using. And even then, it's probably still possible to fake it, because you could go, slow, 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 and then maybe you could sort of jerk it and get a lower score. Although I think that would be kind of difficult to do. But that's my take on the BESS tester. I think it's really one of the most valuable tools that I have for sharpening. I think it's a valuable tool for any sharpener, just so you have an absolutely objective measurement of how sharp your knife is. It's not the only way to know that, of course. Experienced sharpeners, most can generally sort of tell a lot just from the fingertip test. There's the famous sort of 4-finger test. Is it sort of biting into your skin? You can cut paper. You can cut cigarette paper. You can whittle hairs. A lot of different ways to gauge sharpness. But I think this is the most objective and repeatable way to do it, just because all those other methods have some variability inherent to them. As paper, when I do a lot of sort of paper cutting tests also, just because I don't want to spend so much money on this filament. But so I always use the same paper, which makes it a better test. I always use the Uline catalog, which is a great source, because it has, hold on, let me pull one out. This is like the new one. I haven't even started using it yet, but it has like a zillion pages, and the paper is like super thin, so it's a good test for cutting, as opposed to like copy paper, which you can pretty much cut with a semi-dull knife. Cigarette paper is good. Anyway, I'm rambling on at this point, and that's where I'm going to leave it. I hope this was informative and helpful. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up, like button below the video, And if you like this kind of content, please subscribe. It's completely free. And y'all have a good one. I'll see you next time.